Hello there! Mr. Peterson and I are going to work together to explain some of the non-fiction text features that we're going to come across in our reading. Some of these are very basic, but it's important that we know them so we can talk intelligently about non-fiction text. When you see one of the features come up on the screen, please write it down in your notebook and underline it, and then be ready to explain in your own words what that text feature is. Here we go! The first text structure we're going to talk about is the title. The title, quite simply, gives you the main idea of what your article or your book is about. These are the texts that we're going to be looking at for the first part of this video, and their titles are pretty obvious. In an article, the title will usually come right at the top, right below a picture commonly, and we have all our other articles and all our other titles pretty obvious where they are in a book. A subtitle is a little bit different. It takes the title and then it adds a little more information to it so you know a bit more about what you're reading. For example, in this first article, Fighting Ice with Cheese? They add an extra little part below the title so you have a more specific idea of what it's going to be about. Wisconsin has come up with a cheesy solution for icy roads this winter. Catches your attention? It sounds pretty interesting. And again, this is before the actual article starts, which is right here. In this book, the main title is Moonbird, but you can see that there is a subtitle, A Year on the Wind of the Great Survivor B-95. It focuses us in on what exactly this book is going to be covering. Thankfully, our nonfiction books typically have a table of contents, which we can abbreviate TOC. The table of contents is meant to help us see where in the book different topics are going to be covered. Not everybody reads a nonfiction text from cover to cover. Sometimes we like to dip into them and find information that's particularly interesting to us or that will be useful to us if we're doing research. Here is the table of contents from the book Venom, which we looked at earlier, and you can see that it tells you what page specific things are going to be on. If you want to know about ponds, you're going to be able to look at Prisoner on the Ponds right here. If you're interested in about the coral reef, then this is going to tell you about what's poisonous in the coral reef. Looking for information about World War II? Well, you can look at specific parts here. Maybe you're interested specifically in Pearl Harbor, or you want to know about the invasion of Normandy and D-Day. These are specific chapters and pages you can head to. I'm noticing that in the table of contents, I also commonly see an entry for the glossary and the index. So let's take a look at these and see what is included in the glossary and index. The table of contents and the index are both helpful for finding where things are in a book. The difference is that while the table of contents is set up in the order of the book, the index is set up alphabetically to make it easy to find the topic you're looking for. For example, in this index, it's set up alphabetically. You can see right down the left side that it starts with the A's and then goes into the B's, so that if you're looking for information on Austria, you can look right here. If you're looking for information on Philip Calvert, then it's right here, and it gives you the page numbers, make it very easy to find. And you can see that in this index as well. It's all set up alphabetically, makes it very easy to find. I do notice that once they start with the A, like for Arctic breeding grounds, then all of these things are topics that go along with the Arctic breeding grounds. For example, the food at the Arctic breeding grounds, when they leave for the Arctic breeding grounds. So they have the main topic and then little topics that go along with that. As we transition from the index to the glossary, you can see that this book actually has the index on the bottom of this page, but on the top is the glossary. The glossary is a collection of the difficult words in a text set up in alphabetical order. These are words that a typical person might not necessarily know. Often, these are the words that show up in boldface in the text. In a minute, Mr. Peterson is going to talk a little bit about bold words in a text. Again, another example of a glossary set up alphabetically so you can find the words easily. This one has some pretty complicated words like radiocarbon dating and vaccine or forensic anthropologist. Sounds pretty interesting. Now that we've talked about some of the extra features that are included at the beginning and end of nonfiction text to help us find information to understand it, let's talk about some of the things that are included within the text. Here we have subheadings. Subheadings are used to break a text or a chapter down into smaller, more manageable parts that deal with a specific part of that topic. So when we're talking about fighting ice with cheese, they're going to talk in this section about how it's an eco-friendly alternative to using probably salt. And here they're going to start to deal with, does it smell a lot? In one of the chapters of the Moonbird book called Showdown at Delaware Bay, you can see they first, in this chapter, are going to talk about a night of a full moon in mid-May. This is a subheading. Then they're going to move on to talking about a 1979, a springtime dilemma. And then they're going to move on to talking about the ancient giver, another subtitle that shows us how they're breaking down this chapter into different parts. They all somehow have to do with the showdown at Delaware Bay. One of the great parts of reading good nonfiction is all the extra resources they have put in here, like cool photographs and pictures. Each one gives us more information and helps us to visualize what it is that the text is talking about. If it's true that a picture is worth 1,000 words, then the authors of these nonfiction texts are giving us thousands and thousands of extra words to help us understand. And while we're talking about pictures, let's also talk about captions. Captions are really important in a story. Captions almost always go along with the picture to help explain what it is exactly that we're looking at. Notice in this one right here, it doesn't just tell us what we're looking at, but it tells us, since there are two pictures, that these words go with this picture above, and that these words right here go with the picture to the right. Something to be aware of. After all, without captions, we might think this is just a kind of a typewriter, but when we read, we see that it's actually a very complicated code machine that was used in World War II to help defeat the Germans. Don't just look at pictures. Use the captions to help you understand what exactly those pictures are trying to show you. And here is where I hand it off to Mr. Peterson to continue our journey through nonfiction text features.